Okay, we're all Chovos HaLevavos. Steve, need an injection of this. Okay. Thank you. 8:56. We're speaking with Avos Hashem. He said, as much as a person understands and believes, to be able to give yourself the capacity to sense who Hashem is, who God is, to internalize it, he says, it has to be associated with precious, with abstaining. So we explained what is the reason for this. If a person feels that he has a degree of entitlement, you're entitled. A person feels entitled, you don't feel appreciative. You're entitled. So if a person has weaned himself from material, so therefore, what is your need? I have no needs. My need is to survive. More than that, I don't need. So anything more than that, you're appreciative for, because you feel you have no sense of entitlement. So if Hashem provides so much, because I'm not entitled, so you love Him, this causes love. But if you don't have precious and you feel entitled, of course God has to provide. He created me. He has to provide. How am I supposed to survive otherwise? Remember many years ago, interesting story. I was learning in the library at Fifth Avenue Synagogue, and a woman comes in. She was dressed decently, and she says to me, she has no money for food. She has no money to eat. And could I help her? She looked like normal, dressed decently, woman maybe in her upper 30s. So she tells me she doesn't. I took out $50 from my pocket, gave it to her. Next day she comes back. She says, I want to thank you. He says, every afternoon I go to the pier, I need a martini. Yeah, this is what she tells me. and she used the money I gave her for martini, because that relaxes in the afternoon. And at night, she goes somewhere else to get another drink. So I already saw what I was dealing with. You understand? This is her survival. She needs the martini. She needs the alcohol. Yeah, whatever it is. I think there's more and more to be concerned than the calories. So I said, I'm sorry, you've exhausted all I have. I really can't help you. So I'm just saying, but she needs it. For her, there's not even a sense of embarrassment. And to tell me what you're using the money for. At least the person on the street tells, he says, you have $1 for a sandwich. And what does he do with the money? He does something else with the sandwich, with the money. So I'm saying here, if a person has a sense of entitlement, there's nothing to be ashamed of. If that is your purview of life, God, you put me here, you have to provide for me. And if you don't, you get angry, right? Because it's a debt. God owes it to me. So could that person have love? Why should I love you? You owe me. I don't owe you anything. So everything is based upon what is the relationship. Are you here for him, or is he here for you? He says, but what will help more than anything to achieve this exalted level, it's the great fear of God. You have to fear Hashem. You fear him, and you fear his mitzvos, meaning, did I address my responsibility sufficiently? There's a sefer, it's called, it's written by the Mabit on Shemon Esrei. And when a person asks God for his needs, it's an audience. What do you ask for? I want to buy this year's new Porsche. Speaking to God. What kind of nonsense is this? I mean, you ask, if it's a necessity, you ask God. To ask him for what? For something that's superfluous. How do you address what it is? You get an appointment with Warren Buffett. He thinks you come talking about business. He says, by the way, something, maybe you could advise me what kind of golf club to buy. Right? got to speak certain people's language. Says, what do you waste my time for? It's a business day. If you meet me on the golf course, maybe we'll talk about it. But there's not the discussion for now. You have an audience with Hashem. Well, what do you bother? Evidently, you don't understand who you're talking to. It's a disrespect. It's a disgrace. So therefore, he says, what will assist the person to a great degree is simultaneously to be fearful. If you have fear, then you put things in perspective. You're entitled to nothing. When you come before the king, you realize you're entitled to nothing. As a result of that, everything immediately comes into perspective. Could you imagine coming before Stalin? Right? You got to address the whole audience here. Right? When you stand before him, what is your sense of entitlement? You have to thank God that you're alive. Right? That's it. And you hope that you'll leave his presence where they're not sending you off to somewhere. And you say Shechiyonu when you leave it. Well, you say Hagomel when you leave his presence. Okay. That's what it is. And you have to continuously have in mind that he's always aware of what's in your most hidden locations, what's revealed, and how he guides you, how God guides your life. His chemlo, his compassion for you. And he's aware what's hidden and what's revealed in the past and what's in the future. I told somebody an experience I had in first time I went to Israel in 1970. So my mashgiach, his rabbi, was Reb Chatzkel Levenstein, Zechat Tzarech Levrocha, and was known, Reb Chatzkel, if you read about him, Chatzkel put out a phenomenal book on him, about the whole history, Europe, Shanghai, Kobe, what went on during the war, after the war, everything else. He was what we call a kadosh, holy. Anything he said, if he gave you a bracha, the bracha was fulfilled. Ruach HaKodesh, everything. So I went for the first time to Israel, and he was alive. He was in Bnei Barak, he was the Mashgiach in Panovich. He was a very old man. And I wanted to get a bracha from him. Even to say, you should have good. You should have, whatever, anything positive was a bracha from him. So I knew somebody who once learned in Baltimore would attend to his personal needs, because it was very difficult to get to him because he was an older person. So it was known when you'd go see him, if he came from outside of Israel, he would ask you a question. What are you doing here? That's the question he'd ask you. What are you doing here? A man like that, you couldn't say, I came here to tour. You couldn't say that to him. So what did you have to do? You have to minimally study 4, 5, 6 hours a day. Say, look, in the morning I study, at night I study. During the day, it's my vacation, so I'm relaxing a little bit. But to say you're there not learning whatsoever, you couldn't say it to the man. You'd be too embarrassed. Not that because he would reprimand you. Understanding who you're going to, you couldn't say that to him. So if you wanted to see him, you had to spend quite a few hours, although it's your vacation time, learning, and then you would go see him. Because you understand the kind of question he would, it's possibly may ask you that question. So I thought then to myself, and if you don't go see him, the question's going to be asked anyway eventually. Right? Did you learn today? We're learning, which is the Kavati Itam La Torah, right? The Gemara we learned yesterday in Kedushin. That's one of the questions they're going to ask you. Did you deal honestly in business? Right? You're going to be confronted. We have no problem dealing with that question. We put it on the back burner. We'll worry about someone. But here, you're going to a mortal, because he may ask you the question. Do you confront him with that kind of question? Something, I better straighten out my act. I put my house in order. I'm just telling you. So I'm just saying, if a person, I'm entitled, from a distance you could be entitled, but when you stand there and you understand who he is, there's no sense of entitlement. You're the debtor. You're the debtor. So you better come up with what you need to pay the debt. And if you see yourself as the debtor, and then you realize what he gives you, despite you're a debtor, he gives you continuously, then you have love, and then you have appreciation for what he does. To be continued. Yeah. Whatever he said. He says you should be well, this and that was it. I didn't even, it was a minute, that's it.
In the book they bring down that he would
just hang. That was, well, I was introduced by this person. Who I was, that I was a Talmud of his Talmud. It was a whole different thing.
So basically, you feel entitled?
Not entitled. No, you're entitled to nothing. But two things. What do you ask God? Do you ask God for your nonsense? I need a car. I need a car in Manhattan, although it costs me $800 a month to park it, and I got to pay parking penalties, and I got to pay towing fees. You know, give me the money. What are you bothering God with this nonsense? That's something else. No, that's something else. Sending kids to school, that's something else.